Dziś każdy jest produktowcem. Deweloper nie potrzebuje product managera, bo sam wie, co trzeba zrobić. Product manager w końcu nie czeka na dewelopera, bo jest sobie w stanie przy pomocy vibe codingu wytworzyć funkcjonalny prototyp, a właściwie jak się dobrze postara, to wrzucić go na produkcję. Produkty rosną, posty na LinkedInie opowiadają o nowych kolejnych produktach. Tylko dla kogo to robimy? Zapraszam do zastanowienia nad tym, czy, nie bezkosztowy jednak development, nawet jeśli szybszy, spełnia czyjekolwiek potrzeby i czy jesteśmy w stanie to, co właśnie skończyliśmy, zmapować do potrzeby jakiegokolwiek wewnętrznego, zewnętrznego użytkownika. Temat User Needs Mapping. Zapraszam do odcinka z wywiadem. Cześć, nazywam się Radek Orszewski i zapraszam Cię na Kanban przy kawie. Podcast o tym, jak zarządzać pracą zwinnie, sprawnie i efektywnie. Hello everyone. So as you know from the episode description, today I have a special guest, and we're going to have an interview in English. The topic or the subject of our episode says about user needs mapping. But, well, who the heck needs users? And who the heck cares about their needs? I mean, literally coming for this interview, I'm out of the call with a colleague of mine who says, well, these days, AI defines the needs. So I see my guest, his facial expression now, you won't see it in the episode, is like mixed or feelings or maybe now smiling. Rich, before we introduce you to our listeners, do you believe we still live in the age where we should identify and hear out and try to fulfill user needs?
That's a very good question. Thanks for that, Radek. Absolutely. I think now more so than ever, actually, understanding what the users need is more and more essential. And I think it kind of comes back to, Henry Ford has mistakenly maybe been quoted saying it, right? Which is this idea that if he'd have asked his users what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses, right? And often the kind of people quote that thinking about that, we don't need to do user research. We don't need to actually speak to them because we're just going to know we're going to make it up. And so the temptation is that AI is going to be making it up for us, right? Where we know what the user needs based on what AI is going to tell us. But the actual reality, I think, is that instead of it being about not asking the users, it's actually about if we ask the user what they want, they're making decisions based on their existing situational awareness, the environment that they're in. So their decisions about what they actually would like is shaped by any existing tools or the constraints that they're working with. And so actually when you think, well, Ford actually had access to this newfangled technology called the internal combustion engine. So as an innovator, he was aware of these new things that were coming along and recognized that his users, the people having horses, had frustrations with having to clear up all the mess, all that kind of stuff. And so their actual need was to get from A to B. They want to get from where they are today to where they want to go to. And the current mechanism they used for that was horses. But the enablement and shift in technology of the internal combustion engine, so that Ford had kind of recognized that need, and then said, okay, this can achieve what the user needs much better and eliminate some of the frustrations that they currently have. So it's very much about really caring about what the user needs and understanding what they need, and more so in the age of AI, because we often see that people are just saying, well, we just need an AI solution, right? Just implement AI, but actually what need is it solving becomes really, really important.
Okay. Um, what do you understand as the user needs? So we have a bunch of techniques which I would say use the word user, right?
Yep.
And we probably everyone suffered, let's just say, I would say, too intense period of user stories being abused,
Yep. Yep.
and we have different techniques of let's just say, building even graphical representation of what users' needs are. We have wordly mapping, which I know that you're familiar with, and
Yep.
Simon Wardley was also a guest of our podcast some months ago.
Awesome.
So we may refer listeners to this great episode. And now you come to let's just say the market with the concept that you're the author of, so the user needs mapping.
Yep.
And who is it for? What kind of needs are we talking about? Is it, if the listeners are absolutely not familiar with it, or is it just yet another technique for writing user stories? Is it just about, defining features in our application, or is it something extremely wide, meaning, from idea to purchase or whatever? Hmm?
Yep. That makes sense. Well, and great that you had Simon Wardley on. Simon Wardley actually wrote a foreword for the book, and user needs mapping is actually very much based on Wardley mapping.
Ah, okay. So we connect
As
the dots on the map now. Okay.
100%. And that's kind of intentional because I came across Wardley mapping several years ago. Um, but I often found that when you started talking about Wardley mapping, like there's a lot to it. There's
Mhm.
the evolution axis, there's doctrinal principles, there's kind of climatic patterns and leadership stratagems. It's a very much about creating situational awareness for the organization.
Mhm.
But it became quite overwhelming for a lot of people to kind of try to get into. So you'd kind of hear it and you'd start trying to get into it. But then you kind of give up. I think there's a joke that it takes 7 years to learn Wardley mapping,
Yeah.
6 years kind of procrastinating, thinking about it, and then 1 year to actually do it. And, and so, but what I found was that actually there's real value in just that first 4 steps of Wardley mapping, which is identifying the user, recognizing their needs, and mapping the capabilities
Mhm.
within the organization. Because I'd come from team topologies background, and what I was trying to do was working with clients, understand their current landscape quickly. Like,
Mhm.
how are you delivering value? So, who are the users that you're serving, and what needs are you meeting? And then, what are the capabilities within the organization that enable you to do that? And so, I didn't necessarily need to go into the evolution axis of Wardley mapping
Mhm.
in order to kind of get that insight. And so that's kind of the connection to Wardley mapping. And when we then talk about the needs of the user, so there's different kind of ways in which we come across needs. Often they're kind of surface level expressed wants,
Uh-huh.
which is probably the most common thing,
Mhm.
right? So someone says, well, I want a mobile app, or the recent one being, I
Mhm.
want an AI solution. Um, And so that's a want, but it's not necessarily what the user needs to
Uh-huh.
actually get done. And so then there's also their kind of expected needs. So what does the user expect to be true? Which is, I might expect it to be a secure login. I
Mm.
expect that the search works. I expect that there's uptime of the application.
Mhm.
But then there's also this idea of hypothesized needs. So this is where, kind of coming back to the Ford thing, Ford hypothesized that they would need a car to get from A to B rather than a horse. So we're
Mhm.
addressing some of the unmet needs.
Mhm.
And so innovators start to use needs because they're more kind of long lived rather than the technology. So the need to get from A to B is more kind of stable,
Mhm.
but the technology we use to enable that changes as the environment, as technology evolves. So when we're anchoring things at the top of the user needs map, it's those underlying needs that we're referring to. And often your listeners may have heard of jobs to be done.
Mhm.
You heard of jobs to be
Yeah.
done. So my preference and the jobs to be done that I refer to is there's lots of different angles of jobs to be done, but the work by Tony Olwick is my preferred approach, where he talks about referring to the core job to be done, which is the progress that the user is trying to make.
Mhm.
What are they actually trying to achieve? And then creating this idea of a desired outcome as the expression of the need. So if the need is minimize the time it takes me to get from A to B, then we can start to innovate around that user need.
Okay.
And so user needs mapping is then about visualizing our understanding of what the need is, and then mapping that to the capabilities within the organization to see whether we're actually aligned to meet those needs. I often use the blind man and the elephant metaphor. Have you heard that one?
Oh, no.
So there's a metaphor about the big elephant and several blind men are trying to work out what it is. So a king has asked them to explain what it is. One person is feeling the trunk, one person is feeling the tail, one person is feeling the ears.
Right.
And so the explanation of the whole system is very different when you ask the different people looking at the elephant. And so in organizational terms, if you've got a team that's focused around the trunk, if you've got a team focused around the feet, if you've got a team focused around the tail, they might be optimizing for that part of the system, and they'll be doing a kind of great job. That's absolutely fine. But what they're not aware of is the broader system and the needs of the system. So then the actual broader need of the elephant is that it needs to survive in the wild. And in order to do that, there's other needs, such as being able to fend off predators, being able to regulate temperature, all of those kind of things. And so by bringing in a user needs map, we can use that to anchor the work that the teams are doing in the user needs that they're serving. And that's really what the user needs map is there to help do, is always bring that team back to, look, this is the broader system, the thing that you're contributing to as a whole.
Krótka wrzutka informacyjna. Po pierwsze, jeśli ten podcast Ci pomaga, dostarczył czegoś wartościowego, to wielka, gorąca prośba, podziel się nim z kimś innym. Wystarczy napisać review na platformie, na której go słuchasz, dzięki czemu podcast wędruje wyżej w różnego rodzaju statystykach. Możesz też podzielić się postem z LinkedIna albo na LinkedInie wrzucić coś na temat tego, czego się z odcinka dowiadujesz. Możesz dołączyć też do grona patronów i patronek podcastu na patronite.pl/kanban, a także nie zapominaj o tym, że jeśli chciałabyś sprowadzić szkolenie albo skorzystać z konsultacji, to ten podcast powstaje dzięki temu, że funkcjonuje moja marka szkoleniowa Lean Agile Ninja o takim samym właśnie adresie, a więc leanagile.ninja. Jeśli chcesz, żeby coś z tego, o czym dzisiaj, a może w poprzednich odcinkach trafiło do Twojej organizacji, nie wahaj się, napisz. Wielkie dzięki i do usłyszenia w kolejnym odcinku. A teraz wracamy do wywiadu. Well, thank you very much, Rich, for explanation. I really like that you, I would say, divided or subdivided the needs into different categories of needs, right? And again, it's very much about the language that we use. That very often we hear people about, what customer wants, what customer needs, but what kind of needs are we talking about? Are these, explicit or these hypothetical, right? So I believe for all the people involved in building products, delivering services, whatever your role is, it's probably good to, I would say, do this kind of translating needs into really maybe full sentences or at least common definitions. And you mentioned you come from team topologies land. I know that this is important there very much. I come, let's just say, historically from Kanban land when we say start with what you do now. So understanding the ground, understanding of what we are capable of, for example, and what language or requests we receive from our customers. So I think this is in common. But
Mhm.
you mentioned the book, and so far we haven't spoken about the book itself yet. So we will ask about the book, and I wanted also to ask about you, because you mentioned you authored the book. I said you created the concept. You said you come from the team topologies, but okay, who is Rich Allen for those who do not know him yet?
Absolutely. Nice. Well, I'm Rich Allen. I'm based in Bournemouth in the UK, in the sunny south coast of England. Probably one of the nicest beaches in the UK. So if you do ever come over, it's well worth taking a look.
Oh,
Nice
okay.
seaside resort. I've been kind of hands-on technology for over 2 decades. So started my life kind of in teams, working hands-on with the code. So doing test-driven development, behavior-driven development. Kind of earned my agile stripes. Back in the early days of agile, I was working at a startup that was building a system called the V design system, which was very much waterfall, doing safety critical systems for organizations like BAE Systems. But that was really where I learned about using tools like UML, but having a separate department doing the drawing and then the developers trying to do the development. So within the startup themselves, they were trying to organize themselves in a way that was mimicking the systems we were building for the safety critical systems, which kind of didn't make much sense. And I think it was 2001, I think the Agile Manifesto came out.
Right.
This was around 2003. So that was when I first kind of introduced, even as a young kind of upstart, I introduced the first kind of daily stand-up and story charts or burn down charts to try to organize how we were working in a more agile way. And then basically I've kind of been involved in helping teams eliminate waste, remove kind of impediments and things so that they can be more effective. And then over time, I was always interested in that. And then Team Topologies came out in 2019. At the time, I was working at Pure Gym, and we were growing their team internally, trying to help them to scale the system. So we were using cloud development, using 16 deploys a day, behavior-driven development. So really good practices, like in modern terms. But as we started to scale, we had the classic, we just need to add more mobile developers. And we knew that the system wasn't going to scale. So, adding more people wasn't going to solve the problem. We needed to change the way we were organized. And then basically, Team Topologies became a catalyst for change within the organization. It made us rethink about, well, are we organized in a way that's going to then be able to scale effectively? And so when I then got involved with Matthew and Manuel back in 2020, I was also exploring this user needs mapping idea. So I was using it with my clients to understand their landscape. I presented it to them, and they were like, "Yeah, this is great." And it became a sort of a go-to technique within Team Topologies back then. And so, yeah, I've been working with the Team Topologies team, helping organizations of all sizes sort of adopt the patterns and principles for the last 5 years, basically. And I got inspired by them to write a book, and hence the book.
Great story. Thank you, Rich, for sharing. Our listeners are familiar definitely with team topologies. We had Matthew in an interview with him some years back, and I had a conversation with a few colleagues of mine who are like also team topologies advocates here in Poland. But let's go back to the user needs mapping. So you said, well, you exposed your clients, your customers to this technique, and they said, "Oh, that's great. Why is great? What kind of problems does it solve?" So
Yep.
if any of our listeners is now, maybe having her internal conversation. Okay, is it something for me? Is it something I could use? Is it worth reading the book? Let's roll.
I mean, obviously, I would say it's worth reading the book.
Absolutely, yeah.
But user needs mapping is really about kind of making that user-centric focus that as a North Star, making that explicit. So I think often you will have parts of the organization that do user research. They'll kind of understand the users. But when that actually translates or gets mapped across to the individual teams, we start to lose focus of, which particular need are we solving? How do we connect things within the organization? And so depending on the team structure, how the teams are organized, it can often be invisible challenges that kind of get in the way. So teams are blocked by work being handed over to other teams. And user needs mapping really becomes a new useful visual lens to allow you to see the organization differently from the outside in. So often when we think about organizations, we're thinking inside out. So we organize around the trunk and the tail of the elephant. But actually, when we start to look at things from the outside in, looking at from the user's perspective, from what they need, we can start to evaluate whether we're actually aligned in a way that enables effective delivery of systems or solutions to meet those user needs. So it really helps to organization to separate who the users are, what their needs are, visually, and what must be kind of true for that user to succeed. Then we kind of bring together, well, what capabilities do we have in the organization to enable that to happen? So what are the business capabilities as a combination of the people, the processes, and the skills that we have and the experience? What is it the organization needs to do? And then how are the teams overlaid to enable that? So who owns what part of the system? And what we often find is that we might have multiple teams, like a front-end team and a back-end team, that are actually serving multiple user needs. So whenever work needs to change, they have to context switch a lot. They have to understand the needs of different users. They have to always collaborate together. Whatever those things are, the system view can often get lost. It becomes invisible. So a user needs map really helps to bring that kind of sense-making view of the organization. We strip away the org chart and look at things from a needs and capability perspective. And it enables us to then start to reason about, well, what if we change the way our teams are organized to enable more effective cross-team collaboration that meets specific user needs, and then that enables that team to have a better sense of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, because they've got a clearer vision of how their work contributes to the broader system.
Okay. I mean, let me add a comment here. I mean, I will maybe step out a little bit of the role of the interviewer only, right? But what you said is like important probably to, I would say, connect more dots to areas of my interest, and I know what is in the interest of our listeners. This is in the end the podcast which started with Kanban in the word.
Yep.
So, like, first of what you said is like it's a visual help, right? So it's yet another way of, but maybe quite simple and easy to explain to business people, to customers, where are their needs on this map. And what's interesting is what you said, that sometimes we unfortunately still look, and not only look, but I would say limit the ways we co-work or coordinate our efforts through this lens of this org chart, right? So like front-end people, back-end people, let's create two separate tickets, right? For the front-end part and back-end part of something, right? And we know that it doesn't end well because everyone's busy, but we don't have the flow of value, and we definitely do not have something that's recognizable by the user as, oh, my need is fulfilled, right? My problem is gone. My job is easier to be done. Referring to the other technique that you mentioned. So this is really, I would say, interesting, and it's like maybe a wider reflection that we have more and more techniques which are like, I would say, democratizing the language and set of techniques, right? So one could, of course, use the mentioned wordlay mapping. Someone can go into user needs mapping. There's the concept of flow engineering by Steve Pereira, and few other techniques, team topologies themselves, right? Which maybe give you the tool how to, without really bloated language, use something or offer something useful to the people around you, right? How to map what they do to something bigger, and maybe it will drive us into direction of not just constantly context switching, because it doesn't take us anywhere, but like focusing, right?
Yep.
Okay, if this sounds appealing to our listeners, how do you feel they should start? Is there anything that they can look before reading the book, or you suggest to read the book? Maybe any other materials, because I know it's quite some time, maybe just a few months only. But you've been working on promoting the technique. How to start? Yeah.
Yep. How to start? I mean, starting with the conversations, really. Even like the next meeting, I asked the question, which user need are we actually solving here? Like, who are we actually building this for? And especially if you're in a platform team, right? Who are our users is often a question.
Tough questions. Okay.
Absolutely, right? So, but even just starting the question, you don't even need to start with a map. Although the visual helps, just the main point is that we're having conversations about the user and their needs. And the more that we can build that into the DNA of the organization, it goes all the way down the organization. So it's not just about end user facing teams, because the end user facing teams are the users with needs of your internal platform teams. So this idea, I introduced this chain of influence in the book. So it's the user experiences, the needs shape the necessary work. The work reveals the capabilities that team needs. That capabilities will then determine the cognitive load of that team. The cognitive load of that team then informs what the team boundaries and how they should interact should be. And then it's the team boundaries that will actually shape how the value flows. And then that then turns into the kind of value stream mapping, how we delivering the value. So the important thing for me would be to start the conversation. Obviously, you can go to userneedsmapping.com. There's lots of information on there. There's a Miro board if people are Miro users. You can go there. There's a canvas that you can download. I've actually just submitted a plugin. So there's a team topologies plugin. But there's also now a user needs mapping one, which I'm just waiting to get through the Mirrorverse store for review. So you can start to build your own maps there. But, start to maybe map out, create your own map, and then have conversations around it. Because what's really great is by creating the map and questioning the map, you're not challenging people's views. You're challenging the map. So you can just say, well, I think our users are this, and I think our needs or their needs are these. What do you think? Or I think these are our capabilities. And building on that conversation will then to start improving the general sense of our understanding, our situational awareness of what we're building and where we fit.
Listening to you now, I recall the conversation with Simon Wardley when he said also about his mapping technique, right? That it shifts the gravity from it's you versus me, like opinions, right, to it's two of us standing in front of the map, and maybe you're pointing with your finger in one node of this map, and I'm at another, right? And we understand that maybe this is more about nodes and map and connections, not just my opinion versus your opinion. Great to hear that it also evolves into like digital tools naturally, like Mirrorverse or something else. What people interested in user needs mapping should expect in terms of the effort behind it? I mean, like every technique with a continuous form of verb mapping means that it's not one-time job, but am I right with it?
Yeah, 100%. And depending on where you are, what can be great is you'll get insights just by doing a simple mapping session, right? So if you just go to a team and just say, okay, who are users? Depending on how they answer, that's your first insight. Like, we don't know. Or it's a very generic user. Okay, that's that. You could stop there and say, okay, so let's clarify. How do we refer to users? Like, you might need to bring in your user center, your UX designers, whatever. This is who our users are. Then when we understand those, okay, what do they need? And again, if we can't articulate those easily, then that's a signal. It's a signal that we don't really understand how the user engages with our systems. What are the steps that they take? And also there's little hints, like if they use the journey is like tasks and activities, like the language that they use, they're not speaking in terms of user needs. So tasks and activities are great for kind of mapping the reality, like where we are today, is not necessarily great for innovating. So you can then explore, well, okay, how do we get from the task to make that a need? What's the underlying need? Or what's the underlying job to be done? So then there's further insights that we have there. Then when you map the capabilities, so what capabilities do we have? Well, we don't know. Okay, so how do we define the capabilities of the organization? So that's the next kind of insight. And then we can overlay the teams that we have. And then we start to see, okay, our teams are now context switching across multiple user needs, or nobody owns a particular capability. So there's kind of insights all the way down. You don't need to do a full map to get all of the insights. And I treat it as sort of a living document, ultimately. So go in, spend 90 minutes, create something. What insights do you get? I tend to do like a 3-hour session, but that's trying to get all the way through to the point where we're overlaying teams and all of those kind of things. But it produces a whole bunch of insights. And then when you start to reason about team boundaries, we can start to use the map to look at how the different dependencies kind of overlay, and what dependencies are more cohesive, what might make more sense to be together when we're thinking about team interaction design. So I would suggest basically if you're having challenges with how teams are interacting, kind of just do a basic user needs map. Like, get a view of the landscape. It's not the only view that you need, but it's a different view. It's a different way of looking at things without necessarily getting bogged down with evolutionary states and all of these things. Don't be overwhelmed by the need to do Wardley mapping. Start with users, understand what they need and how you currently deliver that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can move to Wardley mapping afterwards. It won't be wasted effort
Mm-hmm.
to do that exploration first.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for explanation. And what I take it from here, it's like sometimes the first step will be a big jump because, like you say, maybe the team members do not know who are the users and who are their needs. I imagine this is even sometimes harder for so-called internal users like the platform teams, like developers needs and I don't know, admin needs or whoever else. But we can use it in this on and off mode, right? Taking next steps or adding more details. I imagine that 3 hours long workshop, when you actually achieve a lot, that requires a lot of preparation, right? Or you have this luxury of meeting with a group of people who knows what they're doing, and it's just like giving it some kind of graphical shape.
It's really important to have a clear purpose, right?
Uh-huh.
What are we doing the map for? So your first step is always, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Don't just map for mapping's sake. It's like, what are you looking to get out of the mapping session?
It's an important warning because we also know that sometimes we are in love with new techniques and we like to bring something new, just for the sake of bringing something new, right? And that doesn't really, I would say, resonates well with people who maybe feel some pains that hey, we don't know what we are doing it for, who do we do it for, etc. And your techniques can help with it. Rich, thank you very much. So you mentioned the book, you mentioned the website, we mentioned the Miroverse template. We're gonna definitely link these resources to the episode details. One final thing comes to my mind, like how would we judge that, okay, investing in learning, having this workshop really paid off?
Mm-hmm. Well, basically you will start to see improved conversations. Your planning will start to get less surprising.
Uh-huh.
You'll start to see teams stopping arguing quite so much about priorities because they're starting to better understand what they own and the boundaries are, and their decisions will kind of be less about kind of escalation and more about shared context. So when people can start to explain their work in how it matters in terms of user needs rather than just kind of their immediate goal, then that's kind of the signal that things are kind of working well. So you start to kind of have this shared understanding of the environment, what you're there for, what your purpose is. Actually, so if you go to NASA and you ask the cleaner there, what is it that I do? He doesn't say I clean the toilets. He says I put people on the moon.
Oh, yeah. I heard
because
this story with JFK, right?
Exactly, right? So he's part of a bigger system, and he understands what the broader system is, and user needs mapping can really help to bring the teams together to understand this is the North Star, this is who we're helping, this is what we're doing, and this is where I fit in the system. And that's where you'll know if it's paying off.
Yeah, great examples, and I believe it pays off even more if you are in a product organization, and we see a lot of organizations shifting still from project service to product approach, and sadly, maybe that's a good wrap up. You said we need to understand user needs more than ever, and now in terms of really fast and relatively cheap development with AI, vibe coding, whatever. This is even more important than ever to avoid our frustrations and avoid the high electricity bill for the planet and whatever else, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Stop making the wrong thing more efficient.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And start
great
building the right
summary.
thing.
Yeah. Rich, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And as I said, we're going to link all the materials to your resources. So if you're interested, check User Needs Mapping, check the book. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jak zawsze przy wywiadzie słowem komentarza troszkę o tym, co jest, można powiedzieć, głównym przekazem tego odcinka, tematu mapowania potrzeb użytkownika. Ostatnio spotkałem się z 2 ciekawymi sytuacjami. Pierwsza to była dyskusja na LinkedInie, którą tam obserwowałem i nawet się do niej niestety zdołałem dołączyć. Mówię niestety, bo to teraz bywa ryzykowne. Czy powinniśmy pisać historyjki użytkownika z perspektywy systemu? No nie, to w ogóle nie piszmy ich w ogóle, tylko piszmy, że musimy podbić bazę z wersji X do X+1. No, przede wszystkim nie wszystko musi być jakby historyjką użytkownika, ale nawet jeżeli my podbijamy jakąś wersję komponentu oprogramowania, to po coś ją podbijamy? I teraz to jest bardzo często coś, co rzeczywiście może, tutaj głowa mi podpowiada, na mapie Wordleya być nisko, czyli niewidoczne dla użytkownika, ale mimo to istotne, na przykład ze względu na performance, ze względu na bezpieczeństwo, ze względu na recoverability i powinniśmy jasno komunikować, po co również robimy rzeczy techniczne. Jeżeli nie jesteśmy w stanie tego uzasadnić, no to czy robimy naprawdę właściwe rzeczy. To taka trochę dygresja techniczna. Druga sprawa, mam wrażenie, że właśnie mamy świat kilku prędkości. Nie wiem, czy w tym samym kierunku. Z jednej strony dużo postów na temat tego, jak łatwo jest dzisiaj zbudować produkt, jak w kilka godzin ktoś coś zrobił. Super. Mam wrażenie, że to często i z całym szacunkiem, bo sam tak robię, produkty pod siebie robione. A więc rzeczywiście moja potrzeba jako użytkownika jakiejś małej aplikacji, małego systemu jest wypełniana. Ale myślę, że pewnym problemem jest zastosowanie tego podejścia 1:1 do wielkich aplikacji, do wielkich systemów, w których dodajemy. Potem właśnie mamy problemy z performance'em. Nie chcę tu wchodzić w utrzymanie vibe code'u, ale zastanówmy się, po co my to robimy. I myślę, że technika Richa bardzo fajna, łatwa, oczywiście w połączeniu i z personami, albo z user story mappingiem, z bardzo różnymi technikami właśnie produktowymi, nadal może nas uchronić w czasach szybkości, szczególnie prototypowania, szczególnie dodawania feature'ów, przed tym, żeby nie robić tych rzeczy niepotrzebnych. I no właśnie, pytanie jak zawsze do Was, jeśli macie jakiś feedback, jeśli udało się Wam tą lub inną techniką zmapować potrzeby użytkownika, wskazać na tablicy, w upstreamie, w backlogu, może po prostu właśnie w konkretnym elemencie, czyją potrzebę wypełniamy i czy to zmieniło jakoś podejście, to zapraszam oczywiście do komentowania tego odcinka, czy na kanałach, na mediach społecznościowych, czy przypominam również wpisu na kanbanprzykawie.pl. I to słuchajcie, tyle na teraz. Do usłyszenia już niedługo. Pozdrawiam. Mówił Radek Orszewski.
Free audio post-production by auphonic.com